Dave, as we go into our second video series, our first one was with Sonny, our rescue thoroughbred, and now we're working with Bo, your green broke quarter horse. What differences do you see in the two horses?
They're all different, and we have to modify our approach accordingly. There are general tendencies among the breeds, but they are still individuals, and that's where we have to make our adjustments.
Dave, several of our viewers have asked about your background, and they like your philosophy with the horses, the patience that you show. Tell us a little about your background and experience in horse training.
Well, my background with horses was with my maternal grandfather, who had horses and mules. Throughout my life, I've ridden horses most all of my life. I can't remember not being around horses or being interested in horses. The connection between your goals, your accomplishments, what you're trying to do, has to be broken into intermediate steps and move from the simplest to the more complex, realizing that if you don't have the foundation, you don't have the first steps well grounded, the effort beyond that is going to be haphazard, to say the least.
Lots of patience and no shortcuts, because they don't work in the long run, do they?
They don't work, and it's not rocket science. You make the correct thing easy and the wrong thing difficult, and think it through before you set up. Sometimes you need to spend as much time actually setting up the training session or thinking through how you're going to handle it as you do actually spending time in the saddle.
What was the first thing you felt like you needed to address?
Marla, the first thing felt like needed to try to determine was Bo's level of comfort in working with the amount of tension that you had on the reins. In other words, trying to determine how loosely I can ride him and still have him be responsive to the cues. Now, the amount of tension that we maintain in the reins to a great extent is determined by the horse and how forward he is into the bit. What I want Bo to do, and what I would want any horse to do, is be behind the bit a little bit, sort of compressed between the tension on the bit in the front and the propulsion from his rear end, which we initiate with the leg pressure from the saddle. In that happy medium between those two forces, we're going to establish his comfort level and ours as well. Bo's had a good foundation in terms of his interaction with people. Bo works on a fairly loose rein at a walk, trot, and lope. He stops reasonably quickly, and of course something that can be used to emphasize the stop is to ask the horse to back up after he stops. And eventually the horse realizes that when he stops, he's going to have to back up. So in that case, the sooner you stop, the sooner you back up, the sooner the pressure is released, and the sooner you go back to the relaxed activity that you're involved with.
All right, Dave. So can we see a demonstration then of the walk, trot, and canter, the stop, the back up? Can we see that?
As with all horses, if we feel them anticipating a cue or taking a move before we cue them, we need to make sure that that doesn't become a habit. In other words, if he starts to trot before I ask for the trot, I need to keep him at a walk a little longer, maybe another half circle or something like that, so that he realizes he does not proceed to the next maneuver until we ask him. Horses pick up on the subtlest of cues. When you think about the fact that they notice a fly on their rump, everything that we do can be a pre-cue sometimes to what we do. The way we adjust our reins, the way we move in the saddle. We all do it. It's just something that we need to be aware of and the impact that it might have on the riding and on the behavior of the horse. Exactly. We're going to proceed through walk, trot, canter, stop a little bit. Not going to ask for anything terribly dramatic. And the cue for forward propulsion is simply squeezing with both legs from the knee to the ankle, where they hang from the saddle. I'm going to let him walk at his speed for a while. Now the reins are about at the right length and tension for most riding as far as my preference is concerned. I can give him a little more just to see how he responds, but again, if I ask him to do something other than just walk straight ahead, I've got to take up the slack in order for him to make a move. You see how far my left hand's having to come away from him, away from the saddle, in order to make that maneuver. I'm going to ask him to trot, and I'm going to do that by simply squeezing with both legs, not yet, and I will squeeze until he reaches the speed that I want him. You can also increase his speed at a walk in the same way, but to get the trot, we're going to simply just keep squeezing until he trots. If he doesn't respond to the leg pressure, I'll probably cluck to him and up the ante on the cues as we go, if necessary. All right, I'm squeezing and he's coming up. Still back off the bit pretty well, but he's very loose. Again, I'm still riding him pretty loose. I'm going to take up some of the slack, so I've got a little better control of him, but we're going to keep going at the trot. Still at the trot, I'm going to stop him up there at that cone and ask him to back up. If he doesn't stop right even, that's okay. Whoa. Whoa. All right, I'm going to let him get settled good, and then I'm going to ask him to back up. Back, back, back. I'm taking a little weight off his back and just sort of jiggling the bit in his mouth. But I am standing up in the stirrups just a little, and he's backing very nicely. When I get him back on his rear end, I'm going to ask him to turn to the right, with the left leg coming around, putting the pressure on him. Whoa. All right, he did that well. The cue for the lope. Now, people do it differently, and the way that I do it or we do it is not necessarily the only way. It's the way that we do it, and it's pretty simple. If I'm going to ask for the left-hand lead, what I'm going to do, as opposed to the walk and the trot, where you just simply squeeze with both legs and increase the speed of the gait, what eventually I would like for him to do, is when I ask for the left-hand lead, when I ask for him to lead with his left foreleg, I'm going to lift him just a little bit, not turn him, but I'm going to lift him a little bit with that left rein to take the weight off that left front shoulder. But what I'm going to do that's going to be fairly dramatic is I'm going to basically push him with my right leg toward that left-hand shoulder. Push him directly. I'm not going to kick him, but I am going to push him fairly forcefully. And we'll eventually get that for the cue for the lope in the left lead, and then vice versa for the right lead. Come on. Reins are nice and loose. He's under control without having to really take hold of him. Whoa. Whoa. Get him stopped firmly, give him the slack, and then ask him to back up. Back. 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 We need to always remember that we work the horses on both sides. Whoa. Just like the horses, I know that I have a preference as far as being able to handle different activities more efficiently on the left side or the right side. And so as much for the horse and as much for myself, I need to work both sides. So I'm going to do the same thing this time. I'm going to ride him down to about where the corner of the arena would be, and I'm going to try to lope him off in the right-hand lead this time. Whoa. Back, 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 back. Whoa, whoa.
So Bo's coming along a little better on the right than the left. That's all right.
And that's fine.
That's all right.
What he's done today,
It's good.
it's hot. He's done well. We need to remember that a lot of times working something over and over, even if it's incorrect, we need to sometimes rethink why it's incorrect, what's happening, what we're doing, and what we can do to correct the situation.
Well, he did take the lope to the left. He just didn't get his lead, and he didn't
Right.
get into the lope as quickly, but he's on the way.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to show in our new
Whoa,
series.
whoa.
Yes.
I'm pleased with what he's done. A lot of times horses that you lope, once they get loping, they get sort of chargy, they're wanting to go. A lot of times you'll have to lope them down in smaller circles to work the edge off, but he did fine today. He's had a good workout. Everything's been positive, so I'm pleased with what he's done so far today.
Thank you, Dave. That was a great lesson.